It's April 2015 and I've come to Gorongosa National Park in the centre of Mozambique for some landscape photography. The park was once the finest safari destination in Africa, but the 16-year civil war from 1974 to 90 destroyed the park and killed most of the wildlife. The few elephants that survived remain very traumatised and are extremely aggressive towards people. The park is being regenerated by the Carr Foundation. Broadly speaking, the areas accessible to the public include a forested area and a huge open plain, which is pretty much deserted today, but back in the heyday of the park was home to huge herds of all kinds of game. One of the biggest problems the park still faces is poaching. Despite having a large number of enforcement staff, known as fiscals, it's impossible to secure such a large area. The park lent us an armed fiscal and allowed us access in our own vehicle provided we use one of the staff drivers. Part of the forested area is populated by yellow fever trees, a type of acacia. The name dates from the 19th century, when the cause of fevers that killed European visitors to Africa was poorly understood. These trees are usually found close to water and became associated with the fevers, and you can take your pick from mosquito-borne diseases such as malaria and dengue, and tsetse fly-borne sleeping sickness. One of the botanists at the centre was Bart Versten, a Dutch scientist based in Belgium. He told me that the fever tree forest is probably unique. They are not forest trees and only occur as a forest in Gorongosa because of the 16-year absence of elephants due to the war. The elephants would normally thin out the trees at the sapling stage. He told me this fever tree forest was not in good shape. The trees did not get on well growing too close together. And he said that in the 10 years he's been coming to Gorongosa at different times of the year, he'd never seen the fever trees in flower or fruiting. And they also seem to suffer from a black fungus that's killing some of the limbs. As well as the fever trees, there are some superb palm tree groves. There are two main species as far as I can make out, the lala palm and the borassus. The lala palm fruit looks a bit like a large horse chestnut. The kernel's hard and white and is carved by locals who refer to it as fruit ivory. There are also isolated trees, Sterculia, which is an African chestnut, pod mahogany, leadwood trees, ironwood trees, and there's no end of tree landscape. There's plenty of UV here, so there's no problem making calotype images, but the biggest problem is the heat, trying to avoid getting too sunburnt, and the usual problems of forgetting bits and pieces, including film holders when the car's been left 50 metres away. Although I've come here to shoot landscapes, I'm using 19th century lenses, and I really only have two types. One wide-angle lens, and one what might be described as a standard lens that isn't great for landscape. But the exposure times are long, and the time I have available here is limited, so it's a trade-off. I'm shooting the lenses wide open, although that's only f16 or f8. If I stop the lenses down to get a landscape with a good depth of field, then my exposure times will be very long, maybe an hour even in this bright light. Then there's a risk that making fewer images, maybe the paper has flaws and will not develop well, or it has chemical staining from bad preparation, and I won't know until I get home. So I've chosen to make portraits of the trees so I can shoot wide open and take more images. And it's all a trade-off really of time and mitigating the risk of failed images from underexposure, chemically flawed paper, although that is getting rarer as I'm getting more meticulous in preparing it.